Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 2017 International Friendship Debate in English between Kyushu University ESS members and Ewha Women's University Debate Association members. My name is Narahiko INOUE, professor of the Faculty of Languages and Cultures, Kyushu University. Our faculty has been promoting debating activities both in English and in Japanese. And this is part of such activities. And this year, we've got the university fund under the auspice of Top Global University Project of the Ministry of Education. Also, together with this International Friends Debate, we have a debate workshop today and yesterday taught by Professor Peter Kipp from Ewha Women's University. He will chair the debate today, and this International Friends Debate is important for our debating activities and also the friendship between two universities and two countries. Debate is not just competition, not just conflict, but also a means to improve friendship, cooperation. Debate is a team activity, so we do not have the competition between Korean team and Kyushu University team, but rather we have mixed teams, and we have government side and opposition side. Both include Kyushu University debaters and Ewha Women's University debaters. And we also can learn important contemporary issues and classical issues through debate. And today we have a very important topic of internet security and also how internet or electronic spaces has been used. And we hope the debaters as well as audience members will have better understanding about this important issue. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Professor Peter Kipp to chair the debate.
All right, thank you, Professor Inoue. It's really a pleasure to be here again with 4 Ewha students. I wish our university had budget to match Kyushu University, which is so generous in inviting us, and so we could then bring more under our own auspices. Maybe that's something we can aim for in the future, but even though we're a small number, I think it's a really wonderful opportunity for us, and I hope we can contribute to the debate program here, even if it's only a small amount. So we've been talking in our workshop about different kinds of spaces, physical space, electronic space. We've been talking about security issues. We've also been talking about other topics as well to try and make well-rounded debaters. Today, the motion that we'll be talking about is here. This house would require networking programs and apps to allow backdoor access to law enforcement. And I understand Kyushu University has also held a policy debate workshop in a different format, which deals with very specific policies in the United States. In British Parliamentary, rather than proposing a very, very specific policy tailored to a very specific place, we try to get more involved in the philosophy, in the ethics, and in the long-term international perspective. So we have 4 teams here today. In opening government, from Kyushu University, Yuki Yamaguchi and Tatsuhiko Hirata. Their job will be to introduce a proposal in support of the motion and to advance arguments in support of this motion. We also have a team, which is a mixed team from Kyushu University and Ewha University in opening opposition, Yoshifuru Okamoto and Ayoung Kim. And their job will be to introduce rebuttals to those arguments and to show why this particular proposal that the government team is offering may not be such a good idea. But we don't limit it to just two teams. The special feature of British parliamentary debating is just like the British Parliament and the Japanese Parliament, it's coalition politics. People may have different motivations, they may have different philosophies, they may have different approaches to the same issues. And British parliamentary debating tries to let those issues emerge, to see which one is the most compelling, the most persuasive, the most practical perhaps as well. So we also have two teams supporting the motion and opposing the motion, but trying to introduce their own logic and their own reasoning. In closing government, we have from Kyushu University, Khac, and from Ewha University, Ayoung. And the closing opposition team is from Ewha University, two debaters, Jiwon Kim and Hongkyeoug Kim. So, as you listen to the debate, we encourage you to take notes if you wish, or simply to just listen and think. And at the end of the debate, we're going to ask you to use a debate ballot. You do not need to fill this out completely, but we're asking you to do two things. First, circle the name of one of the teams. OG, opening government. OO, opening opposition. CG, closing government. Or CO, closing opposition, just as they're represented up here on the screen. And we will announce a winning team based on your votes. I will also get one vote, but only one. And Professor INOUE likewise. Then we also would like you to circle the name of one of the 8 speakers who you thought was the most impressive speaker during this debate. The impressive speaker may come from the winning team, but you may decide that the most impressive speaker was not from the winning team. Maybe that team did a better job together, but perhaps there was one uniquely special speaker even though that team wasn't quite as persuasive as a whole. So you're going to circle 2 things, a team name and a speaker name. We'll collect the ballots. It's a simple majority win, and at the end we'll have a question and answer session where if you have any opinions of your own or if you'd like to ask the debaters any questions about the logic that they presented in this debate, you'll have a chance to do that. Is there anyone else who needs a ballot? No. In that case, we will begin the debate in about 1 minute, as soon as I can get my seat in the audience. All right, as the chair of this House, I call the House to order. The motion before us is this House would require networking programs and apps to allow backdoor access to law enforcement. As the motion stands in the name of the Prime Minister, we call the Prime Minister.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and honorable professors in this house. I am a freshman from Kyushu University, and I am not very good at the parliamentary debate, but I'd like to give do my best. So, these days, the internet has been developed, and thanks to the internet development, people be able to communicate anytime and anywhere. And that means, for criminals, they are easy to plot crime, or easy to seek and find people who have the same ideology. And some cases, it causes some terrorism or other miserable incidents. So, but after taking this plan, we can reinforce the national protection and public power. So. We can mitigate such a miserable situation. So that's why we are proudly proposing this motion. First of all, as Prime Minister, I'd like to set up a model. Firstly, in our paradigm, we need government or the public power to access such kinds of technology needs the permission by courts, which is standing as a position from the government. And if they break the rule, we strongly punish the government, such as we prohibit to access such kinds information to law enforcement. And secondly, no, thank you. We only allow the case of the for national protection, or the only that is only way to find evidence or to investigate the truth. And we only allow for the people who have a strong suspicion. Yes, and if government mistakenly access, we would make guarantee the enough compensation for the mistake. So now I'll move on to my arguments. Firstly, I'd like to tell you about the mechanism, how the taking this motion works after taking this plan. In the status quo, public power is prohibited to investigate with accessing such kinds of information. But after taking this plan, we can collect critical evidence of plot or the criminal with accessing such kinds of information. I'm gonna examine some cases. Firstly, for the planning criminal, especially terrorists. Such kinds of people, in this current situation, they are easy to communicate even in their remote place with the other person. And so they are easy to prepare, make plan, or they are they are easy to purchase weapon online. So but after taking this plan, we can monitor such kinds of activity, and we can prevent themselves.
Sir?
No, thank you. And opposition side might say, if in our paradigm, the terrorists will be not use such kinds of information. But even if some terrorists avoid using such SNS or networking service, that is good, because they have to contact directly in our paradigm. So, and the terrorists who have a strong suspicion, in the current situation, the government lets some watcher to monitor themselves. So that means in our paradigm, we are much easier to notice their movement. And for the impulsive criminals people, some of the people kill the people or attack the people on impulse, but of course such kinds of people have a conflict in advance. So in some case they left the message for the friends or other people to consult. So in our paradigm, we can check such kinds critical evidence. So for this process, we can reinforce national protection or public power and social deterrence, and with mitigation of our harm, violation, privacy. And now I move on to our second argument, that is our justification. Why we can justify such kinds motion. So firstly, two-level justification is here. Firstly, in the current situation, criminals criminals regulated their privacy as sanction. So, such kinds of terrorists have strong suspicion. So, and some of them will be commit crime. So, that's why we can justify our intervention. And secondly, as government, we have to prioritize national security to their privacy. Of course, we concede the privacy is important, but in our part, we want to mitigate the violation of privacy. So, in terms of the number of victims, as national protection is much important than the violation of privacy. So that's why we can justify our motion. So that's why we have further proposed this motion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We now move to the opening opposition team and call the Leader of Opposition.
So there have been rising levels of anxiety due to terrorism. However, even in the face of this, we stand strong and we say that we will not trade off our liberty for security. Not now, not ever. Before going on to defining the importance of networking programs, how it affects our society, our daily life, and then explaining our two contentions, which is first going on to the harms of backdoor access and how that affects, infringes upon our general welfare on two levels, and the third extension being the alternative and how it's not how their model is not exclusive. I would, before I go into that, like to start my rebuttals upon the opening government. The opening government had explained that first, upon their model, they're going to, when the government breaks the rule, they're going to punish the government. However, they did not go into the mechanism of how they were going to punish the government, how these regulations were going to keep the government in check, and therefore not go into infringing the privacy of the general public. They also explained that under their model, they would be able to monitor their activity, but they did not illustrate how the government having to go through the court and needing permission would be able to monitor activity. How is this going to happen under their model? How are they going to identify who is suspicious? And they also did not explain under their cause of justification how they said they were going to prioritize national security over privacy, but they did not explain its impact or why it was so important that security would have a bigger benefit to society when it was prioritized. We hope to prove to you today that having a balance between national security and privacy, instead of compromising privacy for the liberty of privacy for the national security, is better for society. The opening government explained that networking programs were important. Of course, we understand that these are the programs and apps that actually join the system of computers and users, so that they can communicate by exchanging information and sharing resources. This has become a dominant part of our daily lives and our private lives, and which is exactly why so much of our private information is invested upon these things. We believe that the harms of this the model is that the government surveillance has a harm of being abused and will result in a Big Brother situation wherein the invasion of privacy will also lead to an infringement of the freedom of expression. First, because it is aware, it becomes possible for the government to be to access the private information of everybody, almost nearly this equivalent of tapping into everybody's cell phones back in the Snowden case. But this is more serious because instead of just listening on cell phones, it's actually accessing the information, the exchange of information on the digital world, whereas most of all our bank transitions or mails or information is all happening. We believe that this is an infringement of privacy and also goes on to infringing the freedom of expression. Why is actually safeguarding our freedom of expression so important? It's because it's a fundamental human right. It reinforces later. It reinforces other human rights, allowing society to develop and progress. The ability to express our opinion and speak freely is essential to bring change within our society, have our society become a better society in the whole. First, it gives you the right to speak. You can organize your opinions, express your opinions, and then contribute to society by explaining how you feel and how you perceive your reality and have it reflected into society. Second, it also entails the duty to listen. It creates the conversation on how to progress the society, and also is a way to build consensus within a nation so that people are able to form a sense of like national pride or whatnot. It also and then our second contention is how it could be abused by hackers, but before I go on, yes.
So, do you oppose like the social networking company to sell like the information to the user for the other company to earn benefit in the first place?
Okay, so I think you mistake how the characteristic of a company and a government are very different. The government has a separate duty than a profit-seeking corporation in that the government has to do what's better for the general public, the constituents, and what's better for like the society itself. Bringing into the debate how the duties of like the corporation and the duties of the government are exactly the same, we believe is actually not in this motion today. I would like to go into explaining now our second contention, the harms. So within the harms, actually having a backdoor access itself can open up the potential to be abused by hackers. Having a hidden backdoor in one of the examples was there was a hidden backdoor in the Dell security software, which gave hackers like full access. It was the highest rated critical flaw, which involved a hidden default account with a really easy guessable password in Dell's security system, which the security system, which to shortly sum up, is a widely used software used to monitor and manage the enterprise's security devices. So this vulnerability could allow an attacker to have full control of the software and all collected appliances, such as the VPN and the firewall. We believe that this also results in so much compromised network security, which is where a lot of the the invested information and so much of our individual information is up upon the board today. So our next speaker will be explaining how the alternative and prove that their model is not the most effective and exclusive solution. So what have we done for you today? We have proved to you that the libertarian right of privacy, compared with their preemptive monitoring under the name of safety, is that privacy is more important because it is a fundamental human right, a democratic human right, and must never in any circumstance be compromised for any reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition. Back to the opening government team, and we call the Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So the previous speaker told you that the privacy and freedom of expression is a fundamental human right, so it should be protected. But think about in the current situation. So all over the world, so there are many terrorism crimes and many terrorisms, and also there are many terrorist groups, such as Al Qaeda and IS. So and so for this 3 years, so the terrorism has been spread for the Europe, and so now we can see that it is unpredictable. It is unpredictable. So where and when the terrorism will happen. So for this kind of situation, fortunately about this kind of situation, so we should prioritize our safety than privacy. Our privacy. So I'll explain the reason. So for the two by using two viewpoints. So firstly is a number, and secondly is a principal. Firstly is a principal view. So firstly is a viewpoint of number. So in current situation, so there's two, as I said before, so there are too many terrorism crimes, and so if such terrorism crimes happen, so most of the crimes are makes the more than hundreds of the victims. So, for example, so when the terrorism happened in the Spanish, so there are some more than 100 people are killed and harmed. So considering this number, so this is. We will have more number of victims who are so harmed, killed, or killed, so into such terrorists. So than the number of people who are infringed privacy. So and also so most of the victims so who are killed or harmed in the terrorism are not so innocent because so they don't have any relationship with terrorism groups and some criminal organizations. So to protect this innocent people, so we should have prioritize safety than privacy. So and secondly, the viewpoint of principal reason. So even if the number of victims of who are killed in or harmed in the terrorism or such crimes are smaller than the number of people who are infringed their privacy. So we still have to more prioritize the safety of ours than the privacy. So for the firstly, let me give us a definition of safety. So in safety is that people can live without any danger of being killed or harmed. So and why? So this safety is very important because without safety we can live comfortable life. So there is many possibilities of being killed or harmed. So while you are going out or you are in home. So for example, when you are walking in the street, so you are suddenly shot by gun, or you are suddenly stabbed by knife, or when you are going out of the street, the trash box, the bombs in the bombs in the trash box suddenly exploded. So we can do. You can do actively. So do some things. So such as shopping and enjoying amusement park. So fully and so you will be reluctant to do such things. So in this particular and in this situation, I want to say two things. So So firstly, so as my partner made a model, so we will increase so only few people, so only few people's privacy. So because we have to only access the network, access the information who the people who are just to be so suspicious to cause some terrorism or have very dangerous ideology. So and secondly, so by not taking this motion, so and so, as I told before, so the terrorism may happen so in all over the world. So and we can predict so where and when the terrorism will happen. So by not taking this motion, so we can peacefully live. So after taking this motion, so we can eliminate more and more possibility of happening terrorism or something brutal crimes. So as a conclusion, by taking this motion, so we can live more peacefully life and we can live more peacefully life. So that's why we can prioritize the safety of ours than the privacy of ours. So that's why we strongly propose this motion. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Back to opening opposition for the Deputy Leader of Opposition speech.
Honorable Chair, I'm happy to propose. First, rebuttal. Second is there is alternative plan. Third is the convalidity. First, rebuttal. The other side says, we think there is no certainty that their model fundamentally deal with the terrorism and does anything to tackle the core of the problem. The second is result is a major trade-off of giving up privacy. This is a rebuttal, the main rebuttal. We construct the alternative plans. If it's okay, it is necessary, we agree with, but there is alternative plans. First, privacy. The features is, the alternative plan is that case by case, the government asks the company, network company to open, to show their individual information due to the terrorists, right? It is a more limited harmful to the privacy, and it is limited to the privacy, the harmful of the privacy. The feature is that the second speaker is the other side is said. There are many kinds of terrorist groups in the world. I think it is the feature is the terrorism is different. So to take our alternative plan is effective. In a terrorism group, it is a radical terrorism group, and they have the weak power of the terrorists to acting the terrorists. To compare, for example, the former investigation, the government investigation, so we can order. So first, we need to prevent the terrorism based on a terrorism group. For example, first we need to attack the most radical terrorism. That it is a furious terrorism, right? To seek the investigations. For my investigations, the governments are recognize the terrorism is the emergent group. We need to access the networking company to gain this kind of terrorism group, as it is terrorism group. This is a more terrorist group. Means to take this motion is to get all of the information, but our alternative plan is subjective and objective is limited. That is because we are decreasing the harmful of privacy. And more I want to explain about the privacy, what the privacy is. privacy is, so to speak, a patchwork. Means we cannot understand, we cannot assume when and where and who can use the information. This is very, we need to concern about the feature of the privacy. It is harmful to taking this motion, right? Again, this is there is an alternative plan or decreasing harmful of the privacy because of the limited, subjective and objective are limited. And second is that, a comparison is that. I also say the features of the privacy, and that are the features of privacy that in the privacy information, of course, there is economic privacy. It's a our former debater already also explained that hackers, if there is a backdoors, of course, in the same platform, platforms, bad and good person, the bad person that uses in the same platform in the networking system. Because if there is a backdoors, hackers can use the backdoors. Hackers, so to speak, gain the privacy information. Privacy information includes the banking network information. They can steal the individual banking passwords, right? Hackers can gain their funds freely. It is the sub-reflection. Not only privacy is many kinds of features. And not only individual information, it is practically, it is economical harmful in the as a sub-reflection happened. And that and argument is true. The terrorists, there is some kinds of terrorism who have employees that hacker. Of course, they have no thank you. They have a chance to hacker. They have a chance to hacking. For the terrorists, they have a chance to hacking. So to speak, we cannot to take this plan, to take the motion. We cannot assume how expanding the harmful is. We need to, that is because we need to more sensitive to prevent the privacy. Okay.
You keep saying that privacy is like much more important than security.
Yes.
But if someone throw the bomb to me, then I think my privacy doesn't matter anymore.
It's a kind of privacy.
I mean, the terror happens to me. I think my privacy doesn't matter anymore.
Okay, good question. But the most important, what is the value of the comparison? What is the value of the comparison? The first is we need to protect our privacy, but also is preventive monitoring, right? Of course, as sub-reflection, we need to prevent our kind of life, but directly we need to preventive monitoring. So comparing these values, we need to superior to the value of the privacy. That is because we explain, and the alternative plan, we can achieve the goal means to decreasing the harmful, we can protect the terrorism. That is because our motion is better. Thank you. I'm happy to
All right, thank you, Deputy Leader of Opposition. So we've heard from the two opening half teams, and it now is the closing half's turn. For the closing government, we call the member of government.
Okay, so first I would like to say thank you to Professor INOUE, Professor Peter Kipp, and all the Ewha students for the great workshop and this debate. So in my speech, I will have first, so let's talk about the principle, why the public safe, the public harmony need to be protected by taking these motions. And second, what is the problem that the closing government acknowledge in this debate? And finally, why these motions can solve the problem and why that motion is so important. But before that, just one individual rebuttal for the opening oppositions. So they talk about the hacker case. I think that there are some mistake about the motions. We are not opening a new backdoor access. The backdoor access is already exists in the companies. They actually now collect the metadata from this backdoor access and somehow they sell that data to some other company for their own benefit in the first place. Only this motion is the government can now have the right to access to that metadata when they get from that backdoor access to use that for their own benefit in the first place with the speaker. So in the current situation, when the backdoor access still can be protected by the company, we don't think that is a much problem in the first place. But more than that, even if it does a problem, even if that hacker problem happened, as my partner raised the POIs, when now we consider about the security of the whole nations, when we consider about the citizens' life, and when we consider about their privacy and this network securities, we think that to some extent the life and the national security should be prioritized. And I'm going to explain this to you in my speech. The other rebuttal will be included. So first of all, about the principle level, why public safety and public harmony should be the one that we need to prioritize and protect the most. So let's talk about overall principle. They talk about we need to we need to prioritize the private or the privacy of the people. We say that can stand if we talk about the context of the private sphere. But we are talking about here is the communications in the social network. It is not the private sphere anymore. When now it is under the control of the company, and that private company is actually using your own information to earn their benefits. For example, Facebook self-user information to the other advertisement companies. And they can use that information to actually earn the benefit for themselves in the first place. So to some extent, when you engage with the privacy, when you engage with the social network, somehow you already compromise your private information to those kind of companies in the first place. So the same thing can happen if we take a look at the government now. Opening operations actually admit that the government have to protect the citizens, have to protect the safety of the citizens. And that is the benefit of the government. And to order to achieve that benefit, the government have right to actually ask the company to compromise, to give that kind of backdoor access for them in the first place. If they think that kind of actions is needed and its efficiency enough to solve the problem in the current situation. So we think that not only the company, not only the governments, but also the company under that kind of thing also have the responsibility to cooperate and give us information for the public safety. No, thank you. With that have been given, so let's take a look at the problem that the closing government has seen in this debate. So the opening operations, they talk about you just violate the privacy of some terrorist group in the first place. But we think that that kind of thing cannot solve all problems. Because what closing government see in that here, that in the current situations, we have unhierarchies terrorism group, we have branch of terrorism, we have some kind of inspiring or we have copying terrorism. When somebody just see the ISIS actions or terrorist action, they got inspired. And suddenly they want to do something, they want to become a terrorist by themselves. That kind of thing is unexpected. That kind of thing cannot be expected by the government, cannot be monitored by the government. If not, the government is only focused on some kind of major terrorist group in the first place, Mr. Speaker. So in order to control that kind of thing, in order to monitor that kind of thing, we need these motions. Why? That's because one, these kind of people got inspired by seeing the other. And the reasons for them to actually want to do that is because they want to get the attraction, they want to get the attention from the other in the first place. So that's why they have the incentive to go to the internet, saying about their plan and going around asking people to join and persuade people. So now the internet and the communication in the social network is the only way for them and the most prominent way for them to actually gain more attentions or gain more people who share the same inspirations so they can start something new. So that's why this kind of inspiring can actually be predicted if we can know the information about the activity recently, about where or when who or when they go, who or where they go, when did they get the information, or what is the Google search history of them in the first place. So by doing this we can predict and protect why closing government see that kind of thing is so serious? Because first of all, that is the malfunctions of FBI and CIA in the first place. Because FBI and CIA are only focused on ISIS, only focused on the hierarchy terrorism. But in the current situations, look at UK case. Like when somebody just like inspired by ISIS and like go to like Big Ben Tower and like kill 19 people by just like killing them. And like they say like under the name of ISIS. But actually like we don't know him. We don't know where he's come from. And you can actually cannot explain what he's gonna do. Because he just inspired like for a second when he sees some kind of action or terrorism on the internet in the first place, people speaker. So how can this motion or how can our plan can actually solve that? First of all, we accept with the metadata. We follow this kind of thing. And like by the law enforcement, we mean that we have a checking balance. We have the trial, we have the judges, we have the trial, we have the judges. We use this kind of thing to testify and like to actually like investigate on like actions or like the recently activities, and like we're gonna decide like if this kind of thing might be dangerous, I have possibility to be dangerous for the societies, and then we monitor them. We monitor them deeper in like like can monitor them still on the internet or like ask some FBI or CIA agency like to follow them in the first place. And by doing that, not only now we can protect our security from like some kind of big attack from like terrorist group like ISIS, but also we can protect the citizens, our own citizens' safety by actually protect them from like some kind of unexpected or inspiring like terrorism in the first place. So that's why we think that is extremely important, because now that is actually like fulfill like the whole like the gap that the government have failed to do that for so long time, and like still left a lot of like harm for like, the citizens in the first place. So what I say to you in the first in my speech, first of all, closing government is like the only side to tell you clearly that like the principle of social and public safety should be prioritized, and like should be the one like even if like, the private is some problems, this should be the one who prioritize. Second of all, we show you a clear problem, and like the problem that like the opening oppositions cannot engage with us in the first place. And last of all this, we show you the impact and like why this kind of motions can solve this for all of this proud to propose.
Thank you to the member of government. And we now go to the closing opposition team. We call the member of opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To give my further extensions about this motion, I want to give like one liberator to the opening government side and like two liberators to the closing my previous speaker. First of all, like the one thing does not like get any liberator from the opening opposition was that like they mentioned about the one fact that like if we disallow the backdoor thing, then it will make like our terrorists to like directly meet each other and make the plan of the terrorists, so that they can like more easily get those kind of terrorists in our society. However, it's not the true, and it will not happen a lot, because we already know that not only those kind of like Kakao line, which like already like provides their customers data or information. However, at the same time, in the world there is kind of WhatsApp or another program or apps that like already those kind of messages I go through the encoding process. So even like app providers cannot know what their users are saying because already there are some like programs or apps already being the encoding process so that like nobody can see what the users are saying. So those kind of like they're like kind of only like one good results like after happening with passing this motion will not happen at all. And move on to my lecture to my previous speaker. Member told us that like government have to protect their citizens. Yeah, we also consider that. Actually, yeah, as a closing opposition side, I want to like clarify that we also care about the people's life, not only the privacy. However, which side is the like in the end make more safer society and for the diverse stakeholders about including normal citizens and companies and governments, we will prove in my further like speeches. So under this idea, yeah, we also care about the like people's like safety issues. However, my member speaker doesn't give any like clarification that why then the government has the like ahead of the power to asking the companies to give their customers information. Why? Why it matters? Because like the customers' data and customers' information is the one resources that gave the like profits actually to the companies. So for the like companies, they're like being existence of the purpose, the customers' data information is really important thing to protect. However, if they like they didn't give any like reason that like the governments can infringe those the like companies' real purpose and companies like rights to protect their customers' data. So there is no any like comparison between the two like rights of the other like company and also about the government side, and also about their like Britain's case, it was also like full of assumption that just looking at the like issues, maybe not only through the internet like news or the maybe from the like traditional medias, that doesn't mean that those like one like trying to be like IS terrorists used the social networking system. So it was also like full of assumption cases like provided from our full government bench. So moving on to my unique extension for this debate is that first of all, I think this is the really important thing should be mentioned. However, since my like opening opposition side only provide only one line and then move through, I want to clarify about this part more. So that side is like full of assumption that like government will be always use that power in a good way. However, yeah, we can like expect the Big Brother or abusing and of course like the censoring all the other cases which can be like really infringe the like citizens' right of like freedom expression and like right of being do not censored and also about the privacy things. Just looking at the like our neighborhood country Korean case, President Park actually used the actually like comment to the down Kakao, which is like company provides the Kakao, like same with the Japan's line. She actually like comment to the down Kakao that search search the term against the government, find the citizens who really against the government. That was already like actually happening in this world, and it's the status quo. And if we pass this motion, we cannot like expect how much backfire can be occurred. So under our model, even with this kind of backdoor sneaking systems, there is still a way to find and get the clues of the terrorists using current criminal systems. And however, if we like under their model, if we passing this motion, we cannot stop the governments to censor everything, because like if we pass this motion, citizens will be like every day feel like kind of like scarcity or like uncomfortable way that they're being like censored and like uncomfortable to like say what they want to like about not only about their daily life but also about the really important issue about their like current political. So under our model, still we can solve those kind of issues. However, under their model, their solution cannot 100% sure clearly solve the terrorism, because they cannot find every terrorist using this, and also the society will be full of distrust towards the government, which really infringes the cooperation in the society. However, and also moreover, if we passing this motion, there will be overflowing data on the social networking system, which will be make the more chaos in the investigation. So it will be just waste of our tax and waste of the human resources, and just causing more long term in the investigation to actually find the terrorists. And about the stakeholder companies, I already said that really this data should be protected under the company. If they do not, they will lose their customers and they will lose the profit. That's the real also the harmful thing to do occurred in our society. Just looking at the case of the Swiss bank or the iPhone cases, they protect their customers' information whether the government asks or not, so that they can always getting more and more their customers, even in the highly competitive financial market and cell phone markets. So looking at the diverse principles or light of the not only normal citizens, and also for the government's case to find more clearly way of the terrorists, and also think about our main also another main stakeholder company. That's why I'm really proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, member of opposition. We now ask the last speaker for the government, the whip, to come up and give her speech. Thank you, Government Whip. And to conclude for the closing opposition and end the debate, we call the opposition whip.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It seems that the closing government is using the word security, life, as a weapon, to make their legitimacy to looking for the people's information without their consensus. We think that they pointed out about the Park Geun-hye's example, and they told us it's illegal, and we think that if you want, your model is a legal process, and if you want, if the national security is the only legitimacy to look for the people's information, we think that there are kind of lack of justification of how the government will always use the people's information only for the national security. We didn't hear any reasoning of how the government will do that process not later innocently. Okay, and they told us they constantly comparing the value privacy and the national security, and we think that if you want to prioritize such value to another value, we think that you always have to think about the side effect also. So they which they're overlooking overlooking point, which is like government have enough possibility of misusing those information for their own benefit and to remain their like power. So I will elaborate in my classes. So let me like compare the most important point of today's debate. So which is like privacy versus the national security. We think that only because like there are like many crime and there are like many like risk of terrorism, we think that it will just saying that of the government that your national security is really urgent issue. You should give your information for us to protect you. We think that this kind of like mechanism and saying these kind of phrases rather make people overlook the importance of their own privacy, and it can make them think like it is okay my like information being used because it's for the national security. We think that it can make the people like kind of blind, not able to see the like exact the purpose of the government. For example, like there was a example of like FBI and iPhone example that my partner had already told you. Like finally, the result of this accident was like iPhone didn't like give the information of their customers to the FBI, and what the FBI did was like they employed another like intelligent hacker from Israel, and we think that like this, we think that there are like alternative like this way of like using the other like way to catch the criminals of the terrorism. We think that it's like not like fulfilling the duties of the government. They just want to like make they just want to make solve the problem too easily, like without like making another effort. And the opening government said that people's safety is so important. We think that your model cannot guarantee another safety that you're overlooking. For example, there is an example of novel 1984 from George Orwell. The government tried to like censor every daily life of the people without people's like notice, like unconsciously. We think that this kind of like justification, we think that even though there are the few serious accidents that need the people's personal information, if we start to allow these kind of small and big cases, there will be like more possibility and risk of like misusing and overuses of people's information. Yes.
Yes, I think you totally ignore what is the legal process. Check and balance system means that we prevent the abusing of the information, because in the legal process we check the needs of the backdoor.
Okay, we think that government has a power because the government is the like one who has the biggest power in the current status quo. We think the government has also possibility of making like illegal thing as legal to remain their power. Okay. So and the closing government's like POI is that the privacy can exist when the national security is protected. But we think differently. We rather think that the national security can happen after like privacy is protected. Why? Because like think about like the people's privacy. The people lose their privacy, and what happens is like they do not like trust their government, and when there are like other important like accident that government needs people's like consensus and people's agreement, we don't think that citizens will not like trust the government anymore. So we think that this kind of like action, and if like there are like small like misuse of people's information, we think that government has risk of like losing their trust from the government, from the citizens. So what the closing opposition like uniquely contributed. So first of all, we also talked about the companies' right that we did not hear from the opening opposition. As opening government has emphasized, the importance of like networking side is increasing and increasing. And we think that like this means like many of the information, important personal information, are spread through these networking, online networking sites. So we think that people pay for their apps, and people use those kind of apps like entrusting their information, believing that my information won't be misused and overused only for the companies or for the government's benefit. We think that it will make the companies lose the credit because then the people know the company that I gave my information do not protect my personal information anymore. So second of all, we also provided enough justification of how the government has a risk of misusing and overusing my information and which we did not hear from the government bench. So with our model, we think that we, the closing opposition, fully explain with the many stakeholders, first of all companies, right, and second of all people's privacy, and third of all the government will also gather the more trust from the citizens because there is no possibility of misusing of the people's information in our model. So we are so proud to propose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Opposition Whip. All the debaters, please get up and shake hands with all your opponents. Audience members, thank you. So, if you came late, it's probably not a good idea for you to vote since you didn't actually get to hear all the speeches. However, I hope you enjoyed the debate and the different opinions that were expressed and that it gave you some food for thought. I certainly did myself. If you were here for the whole debate, choose a winning team, choose a best speaker. And let's take about a 10-minute break, at which time, debaters, you have 10 minutes. So come back in 10 minutes and get ready to take any questions the audience might have. Right, that's what we'll do. Okay, right, I think everybody's back. Welcome again. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask the debaters, or if you have any additional ideas or opinions yourself that you think would have been useful in this debate, now's your chance. So,
I have a question to Deputy Leader of Opposition, Mr. Hongkyeoug. You say that you have a counter plan that company can ask the company to watch their post sometimes.
Yes, government ask.
You say
Cooperate with company.
I understood that government can ask company to check the post sometimes. You say so?
Yes, it's the same meaning. Company, the government have a right to ask the private company to share the.
I have so, but I don't understand the difference between the motion and what you said, because the motion say that but I don't understand the difference between asking company and asking or watching person.
Okay, good questions. Honorable Chair, I have. Okay, the difference is that subjective and objective information is limited. Information is limited. Means government can access the individual information directly. No one can control, and that in case the investigation in detail, the first government need to investigate in detail. After that, the meeting some requirements. So in that only cases, the government can access the companies to share the like terrorism information. It is the government's rights can be controlled by That is a very different. Means the harmful of the privacy information. That is the main point of difference between them. Thank you.
You mean that you can you think the privacy is prioritized over the national security or government backdoor access.
Yes, it's a strong rebuttal.
So I feel that this has required network programs and apps. In this debate, as a rule, I think all people can make networking apps.
Yes.
Because the specific not unique people. Line is not made by people who have great skill. No one people made a line. And Kakao and some like apps are so. So you mean that if terrorists make apps and but based on what you say, company may say to government, this is no problem in my app because the app is made by the terrorist and the user is terrorist. But I think in such a case, this the terrible thing might happen. I think I feel something to after listening your counterplan.
Okay, well, so that's a good comment. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I think one element we have to consider in this debate when we're weighing the four teams and choosing a winner is if there's a counter plan in the debate, is it sufficiently clear? Can we understand it well enough that it has impact? Or doesn't it, right? So in this case, it seems like the counter plan might not have had a lot of impact. Just as a technical point, if you have a counter plan, the first speaker should introduce it so that it can be a much more clear clash and that you can then give the other team an opportunity to rebut and that you can then develop it. Otherwise, it's almost automatically going to have less impact. And so like you notice your own closing team didn't even say anything about your counter plan. They just like let it drop. So, so that is a weak point in that sense. And it's good that you picked that up. Oh, absolutely.
Certainly that would be a nightmare, but that couldn't be solved by either the motion or the plan or the spread system.
That's true. And closing opposition did bring that up as one of their rebuttals, that even if you can monitor the apps that exist, they can just move to different apps, right? So.
And if the terrorists create their own apps,
yeah.
because they won't follow the government.
Right. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, I think a counter plan could be a very strong weapon in this debate, however, because, you know, just going back to the material we talked about yesterday, government agencies do already have a lot of different things they can do to interfere with terrorist organizations, from, you know, physically paying informers to sending their own spies in to disrupt things, to, you know, satellite data, to metadata. This was like a confusing issue in the debate. Hung in his speech brought up metadata, but I think, at least the way I understood opening government's plan, it would be to monitor specific communication text, not metadata. So there's a little confusion there. But anyway, in general, in status quo, they do monitor metadata already. So as far as what was developed in the opening half, you could have put that into your counter plan as well. Like, you know, you add up resource A plus B plus C plus D, and you focus on the highest priority first, the groups that are the biggest, the most established, that we can already identify clearly so there's no danger of abuse. And there, you have a strong counterplan. Like the idea, the strategy coming from opening opposition was certainly a good strategy. I think the execution maybe fell down a bit. Right, other comments or questions? Okay, is it time to go to the vote? Oh, well, not quite. According to the schedule, it's not going to be until another 15 minutes when we announce the winners. So I'll make a few other comments on the debate if there are no other questions or comments. Okay, let's see. So I thought basically there were three major areas of clash. First is the sort of weighing two principles of security versus right to privacy. And that was especially strongly developed in the opening half, I think, although it certainly continued into the closing half. I thought the deputy leader of opposition made a nice, clear sort of analysis of both principle and numerical calculus as well, of reasons why perhaps privacy is not as important as security in this particular case. I don't think that was answered by either of the opposition teams, so that's a strong point coming from opening government. Coming from opening opposition, I thought the best point, the second area of clash was economic harm, which was also developed in a different way by closing opposition. The third area of clash was solvency. Does it actually stop the terror, right? So I thought the strongest argument coming from opening opposition was the idea of hacking, and how if you have a backdoor, that opens the backdoor for other hackers as well as the authorized government. And I didn't really hear a very strong response from opening government to that. I think closing government maybe handled that a bit better. But here's where the issue of what are you actually monitoring? The communication itself, the metadata, do the companies already monitor already? So is there no difference for there, no comparative advantage over status quo for opposition? In which case you would clearly win that point, but there's a bit of vagueness coming in there. So I think that point still stands in the debate, that there may be a danger of hacking if you open up a new kind of tool that's then accessible. They used the example of Dell, right? So there was quite a bit of elaboration there that I don't think government bench dealt with. Moving to closing government, I think the most interesting point coming from closing government was the idea that to a large extent, social communication networks are already very big networks. They're a kind of public space that is already being exploited in various ways by various actors, and therefore why is the privacy right even an issue here when people have already voluntarily given up so much of their privacy once they enter this kind of network? So I thought that was interesting. Again, the question of what exactly is being monitored is probably an important question if we really want to resolve that argument either way. But I don't think the opposition team, the closing opposition, I don't think you picked up on that and engaged with that. At least not in the principle, although you did talk about some of the details there. And then finally for closing opposition, they also developed the economic aspect a bit more, focusing on the companies themselves and how part of their contract, although I think it was developed in detail only in the whip speech, how part of the reason people contract with these companies for their services is they have a guarantee of privacy. And if they no longer have that guarantee, and it's publicly known they no longer have the guarantee, what's going to happen? And if you had linked that to your other argument about people will then migrate to other apps a little bit more strongly, I think that could have been extremely strong as well. As it stood, I think I had a bit of trouble focusing on where your main thrust was in closing opposition, although I thought you brought in some very good points as well. So those are my comments about the debate. I hope I haven't revealed a winner because I think I said one good thing and one bad thing about each team. Okay, right, and we still have about 10 minutes, so if there's anyone who wants to make another comment, feel free. I'll give you a count of 10. And if nobody has anything to say, we'll let Professor Inoue give his dramatic conclusion and announce a winner. No, my count is very slow. It's a count of 10. I didn't say 10 seconds. They're 10 seconds of Enceladus, the moon of Pluto or whatever that is. Where is Enceladus anyway? Is that around Neptune? I don't know. Anyway, 10 seconds in some celestial body somewhere. 10. Okay, Professor Inoue, all yours. Oh, and we do have prizes. Fabulous.
Oh.
cards are expensive, mind you, except perhaps on Pilates where their seconds last this long. However, prizes for the winners.
Okay, we had 11 votes altogether. And first, the winning team got 6 votes. Excuse me, 8 votes. 8 votes. Closing government. And individual prize. Best speaker goes to winning 6 votes. Members of the government.
All right, now you'll see how fabulous these are. So fabulous. Starting with speaker prizes. So let's see here.
Wow, so fabulous.
So all the speakers get prizes. Thank you. It was a quite entertaining debate, I have to say. I think like the comments I made, I do think each team had at least one very, very strong argument that really like made me wake up and pay attention to what you were saying. So okay, but you see, he's the most fabulous. So.
What do you get?
So just wait. And because probably chocolate isn't bad enough for your health, we thought, you know, the winning team should have a handicap for the next round. So. Congratulations. It's a wonderful trophy.
I never knew the world of debate was so toxic.
It is. Probably not only taxing on your body, but also your soul. No matter, you know, all the lies and misrepresentations and whatever. But anyway, okay. I think that ends today. This summer's International Friendship Debate. And